My name's Cameron. I'm 29 years old, and on September 8, 2022, I passed away in an explosion at SpaceX down in Texas. I'd been with SpaceX for 6 years as a propulsion systems engineer. I started fresh out of college, full of big dreams about getting humanity to Mars. My wife, Elena, and I had just bought our first house together in Brownsville. We were trying to start a family, trying for our first baby. I genuinely believed we were building the future, brick by brick. Every single day, I walked into that facility thinking I was contributing to something way bigger than myself, something truly significant that would change everything for our species, for humankind. But I had absolutely no clue what was really going on behind closed doors, the stuff they didn't want us to see. That morning started just like any other. Coffee at 5 a.m. A quick kiss goodbye to Elena while she was still sound asleep. Then the 30-minute drive down to Starbase. We were running final tests on the Raptor engines, getting ready for the next Mars mission prototype. Everything seemed totally normal. Just routine checks, data reviews, the usual team briefing. I was down in the engine bay when it all happened. We were conducting a pressure test on the fuel lines when something went terribly, catastrophically wrong. The explosion was unbelievably massive and so incredibly sudden that I didn't even have a second to feel afraid. 1 second, I was glancing at my tablet, checking the pressure readings. The next second, everything just went white, pure white. But here's the crazy thing. I didn't lose consciousness right away. I felt this unbelievably intense heat. Then this crushing, suffocating weight on my chest. Couldn't breathe. I couldn't move a muscle. I remember thinking about Elena, about the promise I made to her to be careful, about how we'd been talking about baby names just the night before, brainstorming ideas. Then, everything just went completely dark. What unfolded next completely changed everything I thought I knew about life, death, and what we're really doing here on Earth, our true purpose. All of a sudden, all the pain was gone. Just complete silence. No more crushing weight. No more burning sensation in my lungs. I felt this strange lightness, like I was floating, weightless. And that's when it hit me. I was floating. I was looking down at my own body, trapped underneath the twisted metal and broken concrete, with blood everywhere. There were people running toward the wreckage, shouting my name, but their voices sounded so distant, so far away. I tried to call out to them, to tell them I was okay, that I was still here, but no sound came out. That's when it really hit me. I wasn't in my body anymore. There was this tunnel of light, but it wasn't like the cliché you always see in movies. It was alive somehow, warm and welcoming, but also intensely powerful, beyond anything I'd ever experienced. I felt myself being pulled toward it, and I didn't resist at all. For the first time in my entire life, I felt completely at peace. Then I saw him. Jesus was standing in the light, but he wasn't how I'd pictured him from all those paintings and movies I'd seen growing up. He was radiant, glowing with this incredible love that I could literally feel washing over me. His eyes were the deepest brown I'd ever seen, filled with such compassion that I immediately started to cry. Not sad tears, but tears of overwhelming joy and relief, a release of everything. "Cameron," he said, and his voice was like warm honey mixed with thunder, a comforting power. Every single cell in my being recognized that voice, even though I'd never consciously heard it before. "I've been waiting to show you something." I tried to speak, but the words just caught in my throat. I couldn't get them out. Finally, I managed to whisper, "Lord, I don't understand what's happening." He smiled, and that smile held more love than I'd felt in my entire life, all rolled into one. "You've been working so hard to get humanity to Mars," he said so gently. "But you don't really know why they want to go there." "What do you mean?" I asked, completely puzzled. That's when he showed me things that completely shattered everything I thought I knew, all my preconceptions. Jesus waved his hand, and suddenly we were standing in what looked like a massive conference room. But this wasn't just any ordinary conference room I'd ever seen. The walls were made of some kind of dark, glossy material that seemed to absorb the light around it, almost like a black hole. Around a huge obsidian table sat figures in expensive, tailored suits. Some of them I recognized as world leaders, tech billionaires, people I'd seen plastered all over the news. But there were others there, too. Beings that weren't quite human, something else. "This is what they call the council," Jesus said softly, his voice barely audible. "They've been planning this for decades." I watched in horror as these figures discussed the Mars colonization project, but not in the same way we talked about it back at SpaceX. They weren't talking about backup plans for humanity or any great scientific advancement. They were talking about escape routes, a way out. "The awakening is accelerating faster than we anticipated," said a man I recognized as one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, maybe the wealthiest. "More and more people are turning to prayer, seeking truth. We need to be off-planet before the final harvest." One of the non-human beings leaned forward, its eyes completely black and devoid of emotion. "Mars will serve as our sanctuary when the king returns. We can continue our work from there, rebuild our influence once the dust settles." I felt sick to my stomach. Jesus, what are they talking about? What awakening? What harvest? He placed his hand on my shoulder, and immediately I felt calm again, a sense of reassurance. "Cameron, there's a spiritual war happening that most people can't even see. These beings, these fallen ones, they know their time is running out. They've been using human ambition and technology to build their escape plan." Then he showed me another scene. I saw the SpaceX facility, but from a spiritual perspective. There were dark entities hovering around the buildings, subtly influencing decisions, whispering ideas into the minds of the engineers and executives, pulling the strings. I saw how they'd been guiding the entire Mars project from the very beginning, not to help humanity, but to create a refuge for themselves, a safe haven. "The technology you've been developing," Jesus continued, "it's not just about getting to Mars. They're building something else there, something that will allow them to continue deceiving and controlling souls even after I return to establish my kingdom on Earth." I saw massive underground facilities being constructed on Mars by robotic systems that had been sent there years before any public announcements. These weren't research stations or habitats for future human colonists. They were something far more sinister, something evil. Preparations for spiritual warfare on a cosmic scale, unseen by almost everyone. "But Lord," I said, my voice shaking, "I thought we were doing good work. I thought we were securing humanity's future." "Your heart was pure, Cameron," he said with infinite compassion, his eyes full of understanding. "Most of the people working on these projects have pure intentions. They've been deceived, just like you were. The enemy is cunning, incredibly so. He uses mankind's noblest impulses, the desire to explore, to grow, to survive, and twists them for his own purposes." Then he showed me something that broke my heart completely, shattered it into a million pieces. I saw Elena sitting in our kitchen, praying for me every single morning before I left for work. I saw her whispering prayers for protection over me, asking for my safety. I saw how her simple, faithful prayers had been like a shield around me, protecting me, preventing me from being drawn deeper into the deception. "She saved you," Jesus said, his voice gentle. "Her prayers kept your heart soft, kept you seeking truth instead of just advancement. That's why you're here with me now instead of being trapped with them." I was sobbing now, overcome with emotion. I had absolutely no idea. I thought I was just good at my job. I thought I'd earned my position, all on my own. "You did earn it, through her prayers, and your own seeking heart. But my child, I need you to understand something crucial." His expression became more serious, more intense. "The enemy's plan is accelerating. They know that more and more people are waking up to the spiritual reality around them. They're planning to take the most influential minds off-planet before my return, so they can regroup and continue their deception from Mars." He showed me a timeline that made my blood run cold. The Mars colonization wasn't planned for decades in the future, like they were telling the public. It was planned for just a few years away, a very short time. The first wave wouldn't be scientists and explorers, the best and brightest. It would be the world's elite, the ones who had been working with these dark entities all along, the puppet masters. "But there's something they don't understand," Jesus said. And for the first time he smiled again, a glimmer of hope. They think they can run from me. They think distance in space means distance from my authority. They don't realize that I created the universe. There is nowhere they can go that I am not. Then he showed me the most incredible thing. I saw Mars as it really was. Not the barren, dead planet that science tells us about, but a world that had once been alive, vibrant and full of life. I saw what had happened there before a tragedy. How another civilization had fallen to the same deceptions, making the same mistakes. How they had desperately tried to flee to other worlds when judgment came, escaping consequences. The red dust that covers Mars isn't just iron oxide. It's the remains of a world that chose rebellion over repentance. This has happened before, Cameron, Jesus said sadly, his heart aching. Across the cosmos, worlds have risen and fallen based on the same choice. Will they serve me, or will they serve themselves? Mars was once green and blue, teeming with life. But they chose the same path that Earth is choosing now. I was completely overwhelmed. So much information to process. So the Mars mission, it's all a lie? Not entirely, he replied, carefully choosing his words. There will be genuine scientific discovery. There will be brave souls who go with pure hearts, seeking to expand human knowledge and capability. But the real purpose, the hidden agenda, is escape from accountability. They think they can build a new world order on Mars, away from my influence beyond reach. What can I do? I asked desperately. How can I stop this? Jesus took my hands in his, and I felt power surge through me, like electricity mixed with pure love, a wave of energy. You're going back, Cameron, but not to stop the mission. That's not your calling, your purpose. You're going back to warn people about what's really happening, to help them understand that their safety isn't in escaping to other planets. Their safety is in turning back to me. But who's going to believe me? I protested, confused. I'm just an engineer. People will think I'm crazy. The same people who once thought Noah was crazy, he said with a gentle smile, understanding my fear. The same people who thought the prophets were crazy. Cameron, I don't need everyone to believe you. I just need the ones I'm calling to hear the truth through your voice. Then he showed me one more thing that I'll never forget. Not in a million years. I saw prayer warriors all across the earth. People I'd never even met. People who had been praying for years that the hidden things would be brought to light, that truth would prevail. I saw Elena's prayer group meeting every Tuesday night in our living room, interceding for the workers in high places who were being deceived, for their eyes to be opened. I saw children in Africa praying for the space people to know Jesus, to find him. I saw elderly women in rural churches asking God to protect the young men working with dangerous technology, for their safety. They've been praying for you specifically, Cameron, Jesus said. Not by name, but for your protection and awakening. Their prayers are what brought you here to me today. I felt so small, so humble, so grateful. All this time, I thought I was making my own way in the world, when really I was being held up by the prayers of complete strangers, carried by their faith. There's something else, Jesus continued, his tone shifting. The explosion that brought you here, it wasn't an accident. The enemy tried to kill you because your role in exposing this plan is crucial, very important. But my angels deflected the worst of the blast. What should have vaporized you instantly only brought you to the edge of death, so I could speak with you here. He gestured around us, and I realized we were standing in a place that was somehow both vast and intimate, filled with light but also cozy, like a beloved home, familiar. This is just the threshold, he explained. Beyond here is my Father's house, with rooms I've prepared for those who love me. Cameron, I want nothing more than to welcome you home right now. You've suffered enough. You could stay here in perfect peace, perfect love, perfect rest. For a moment, the temptation was overwhelming, almost unbearable. The thought of never having to worry again, never having to struggle with doubt or fear or pain, never having to watch Elena cry when I came home stressed from work. It sounded like paradise because it was paradise. But then I thought about Elena, alone in our house, probably getting a phone call right now that would completely shatter her world, crushing her. I thought about all the people at SpaceX who genuinely believed they were working for humanity's future, innocent. I thought about the children who would grow up in a world where the most influential people had abandoned Earth for their own survival, leaving them behind. I have to go back, don't I? I said, tears streaming down my face, my heart heavy. Jesus nodded solemnly. Your mission isn't finished, my son. But I promise you this. Every day you spend carrying this burden, I will be right there with you. Every time someone calls you crazy, I will whisper my truth in your heart. Every time you doubt what you've seen here, I will remind you of this moment. He placed his hand on my forehead, and suddenly I understood things I'd never understood before. A new clarity. I saw how the technology we were developing could be redeemed, used for good instead of escape, transformed. I saw how the genuine desire to explore space could be separated from the hidden agenda to flee from God, disentangled. I saw how the truth could set people free, even in the midst of deception, cutting through the lies. Remember, Jesus said, as the light around us began to fade. They can run to Mars. They can run to the furthest galaxy, but they cannot run from me. When I return to establish my kingdom, it will be a cosmic kingdom. Every knee will bow on Earth, and on Mars, and in every corner of the universe. The last thing I remember him saying was, tell them that their hope is not in becoming a multiplanetary species. Their hope is in becoming a redeemed species. Then everything went dark again, and I was gone. I woke up to the sound of machines beeping and Elena sobbing. A chaotic symphony. My chest felt like it had been crushed by a truck, which I guess it basically had. There were doctors and nurses everywhere, all talking at once, saying things like impossible and no brain damage after 17 minutes. And we need to run more tests. Elena was holding my hand so tight, I thought she might break my fingers. A vice grip. Her face was red and swollen from crying. Exhausted. Her hair was a mess. And she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. The love of my life. Cameron, she whispered, her voice raw. They said you were gone. They said. I squeezed her hand as hard as I could manage, reassuring her. I'm here, baby. I'm here. But I wasn't the same person who had kissed her goodbye that morning. How could I be? I'd seen behind the curtain of reality, glimpsed the truth. I'd met Jesus face to face, an experience beyond words. I'd learned that everything I'd been working toward was built on a lie, a foundation of sand. The doctors kept me in the hospital for a week, running test after test, trying to figure out how someone could be clinically dead for 17 minutes and wake up with no brain damage, no cognitive impairment, nothing but some broken ribs and bruised organs that were already healing faster than they should have been, defying logic. I didn't tell them about meeting Jesus, not at first. I knew they'd want to chalk it up to hallucinations from lack of oxygen, a scientific explanation. But Elena knew something had changed. Deep down, she said I looked different, that there was something in my eyes that hadn't been there before, a light. It was on the third night in the hospital that I finally told her everything. About the council, about Mars, about the real purpose behind the colonization project, about Jesus and his warning, and the mission he'd given me, my calling. Elena listened to every single word without interrupting, absorbing everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time, processing. Then she said something that confirmed I'd married the right woman, the woman I was supposed to be with. I believe you, she said simply, with unwavering conviction. I've been praying for 2 years that God would show you what was really happening at that place. I could feel the darkness around it every time you came home. That's when I knew that Jesus had been right about her prayers protecting me, shielding me from the worst. I quit SpaceX the day I got out of the hospital, no hesitation. Officially, I told them I needed time to recover from my injuries, a reasonable excuse. Unofficially, I knew I couldn't be part of building escape pods for fallen angels anymore, facilitating their plan. Some of my former colleagues have reached out, concerned about me, thinking I've lost my mind, gone off the deep end. A few have actually listened to what I've told them and quietly started asking their own questions. Their curiosity piqued. One guy, David, actually came to me and said he'd been having dreams about dark figures in the facility for months, but thought he was just stressed, overworked. The hardest part has been learning to live with this knowledge, bearing the burden of truth. Every time I see news about Mars missions or space exploration achievements, I feel this heavy weight in my chest, a sadness. I know there are good people working on those projects, people with pure hearts who genuinely want to help humanity, advance our understanding of the universe. But I also know what's really driving the agenda at the highest levels, the true motivation. Elena and I have started attending a small church where the pastor actually preaches about spiritual warfare and the end times boldly. Not the crazy fear-mongering kind of teaching, but the biblical truth about the battle between light and darkness, good and evil. I've shared my testimony there, and people have received it with open hearts, embracing the message. The strangest thing is how my relationship with God has changed, transformed completely. Before my death, I believed in Jesus, but it was more like an insurance policy, something I thought was probably true and seemed like a good idea to believe in, hedging my bets. Now, I know him personally. I talk to him throughout the day like he's standing right next to me because in a way he is always present. Prayer isn't just words I say before meals anymore. A formality. It's warfare, a powerful weapon. Elena and I pray every morning for the exposure of hidden agendas, for truth to come to light, for protection over the genuine scientists and engineers who are being deceived, for their safety and discernment, for wisdom for the leaders who still have pure hearts, that they might see the truth. We pray that people will wake up to the spiritual reality around them before it's too late, while there's still time. I've started writing down everything I can remember from my encounter with Jesus, documenting it all. Every detail about what he showed me, preserving the experience. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it all yet, but I know it's important, a sacred responsibility. Maybe someday I'll write a book, sharing my story with the world. Maybe I'll start speaking at churches, spreading the message. Maybe I'll just keep sharing my story one person at a time, planting seeds of truth. What I do know is this: the elite of this world think they can escape to Mars when things get bad here on Earth, absconding. They think they can build a new civilization without God's interference, outside his jurisdiction. But they're wrong, so wrong. Jesus is Lord of the entire universe, not just Earth. There is nowhere they can run that his authority doesn't reach, no escape. The real question isn't whether humanity will become a multiplanetary species, expanding our reach. The real question is whether we'll become a redeemed species, saved. Will we turn back to our Creator before it's too late, repenting? Or will we follow the same path that destroyed Mars long ago, doomed to repeat the past? I've been given a second chance at life to share this message, a new purpose. Not everyone who has a near-death experience gets such a clear mission, but mine couldn't be clearer, crystal clear. The hidden things must be brought to light, revealed. The deception must be exposed, unmasked. People need to know that their hope isn't in escaping to other planets, fleeing. Their hope is in the one who created all the planets, turning back to the source. If you're listening to this and you work in the space industry, I want you to know that I'm not against space exploration. I'm not an enemy. I'm not against scientific advancement. Progress is good. But I am against using those noble pursuits to hide an escape plan for the world's most evil people, facilitating wickedness. Ask questions, be curious. Pray for discernment, seek guidance. Pay attention to who's really driving the agenda and why. Follow the money. If you're listening to this and you think it sounds crazy, I understand, I get it. 6 months ago, I would have thought the same thing, dismissed it. But I've seen what I've seen, and I can't unsee it. It's burned into my memory. Jesus is real, undeniably. The spiritual war is real, raging all around us. And the plans being made in secret boardrooms around the world are more sinister than most people can even imagine, truly evil. But here's the hope I want to leave you with, the light in the darkness. God wins in the end, always. I've seen a glimpse of his kingdom, and it's more beautiful than anything we could ever build on Mars or any other planet. A paradise beyond compare. He's not surprised by their escape plans. He's anticipated it. He's not worried about their advanced technology. He's in control. He's been preparing for this moment since the foundation of the world. He's ready. Your safety isn't in fleeing to another planet, running away. Your safety is in running to the arms of the one who loves you enough to die for you, embracing salvation. Your hope isn't in becoming a spacefaring civilization, venturing into the cosmos. Your hope is in being part of God's eternal kingdom, secured for eternity. The countdown to something has already begun. The clock is ticking. But it's not a countdown to Mars colonization, an earthly endeavor. It's a countdown to the return of the King, a divine event. And when that day comes, every knee will bow on Earth, on Mars, and in every corner of the universe, absolute surrender. Don't put your trust in the plans of men, they will fail. Put your trust in the plan of God, it will prevail. Because I promise you, His plan is the only one that's going to succeed in the end, guaranteed.